My mother believed my grandmother's inheritance was her birthright, regardless of the years of abuse she put us through. When fake legal threats failed to break me, she broke into my home to burn it to the ground, unaware I was recording every second. Before we begin today's story, we have an urgent announcement. Due to technical issues, this channel is shutting down. But don't worry, the stories continue. Please subscribe to our new channel, Daily Drip Stories. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. It was a suffocating weight that pressed against my chest, making every breath feel like I was inhaling through a damp wool blanket. I was sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by cardboard boxes that I hadn't had the energy to tape shut yet. My grandmother's things. Her smell, lavender and old paper, was starting to fade from the air, replaced by the sterile, dusty scent of moving. I had been fighting a migraine for 3 days, a throbbing spike behind my left eye that pulsed in time with my heartbeat. It was a physical manifestation of the grief that had hollowed me out over the last 6 months. Caring for Nana during her final stage of hospice hadn't just been a duty, it had been my entire world. I had slept in a chair next to her bed, fed her crushed ice when she couldn't swallow water, and held her hand until the warmth finally seeped out of it. I was physically shattered. My immune system had apparently decided to resign the moment the funeral was over, leaving me with a low-grade fever and a body that felt like it was made of lead. "Sophie," Marcus called from the kitchen, his voice soft, trying not to startle me. "Babe, you need to eat something. You haven't touched the toast." "I can't," I whispered, closing my eyes and leaning my head back against the sofa. "My stomach is doing flips." "You have to keep your strength up," he insisted gently, walking into the room. He looked tired too, his dark hair messy, deep circles under his eyes. He had been my rock through all of this, shouldering the burden when I was too weak to stand. He sat down next to me, avoiding the boxes, and placed a hand on my knee. "We're almost done. Once these boxes are in storage, we can just breathe." I nodded weakly, opening my eyes to look at him. "I know, I just miss her, Marcus. I miss her so much it hurts physically." "I know," he soothed, pulling me into a side hug. That quiet, fragile moment was shattered by a pounding at the front door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was a rhythmic, aggressive thudding, like someone was trying to punch through the wood. My heart hammered against my ribs, the sudden noise sending a fresh spike of pain through my head. Marcus frowned, his protective instinct instantly flaring. "Who is that? We aren't expecting anyone." "Maybe it's the package delivery," I suggested, though I knew delivery drivers didn't knock like they were the police. Marcus stood up. "Stay here, rest." I didn't listen. I couldn't just sit there while someone battered down our door. I pulled myself up, swaying slightly as the blood rushed from my head, and followed him to the entryway. Marcus opened the door. Standing on our porch wasn't a delivery driver. It was a man in a cheap, ill-fitting gray suit. He was sweating profusely, despite the cool autumn air, and he held a thick manila envelope in his hand like a weapon. He didn't look at Marcus. He looked past him, his eyes locking onto me with a strange mix of nervousness and arrogance. "Sophie," he barked, not waiting for a confirmation. "Sophie, no last name." "Yes," I croaked, my voice raspy. He shoved the envelope into Marcus's chest, forcing him to grab it by reflex. "You've been served. Effective immediately, you are ordered to vacate the premises and freeze all assets related to the estate of the deceased. Failure to comply will result in immediate litigation." "What?" Marcus asked, staring at the envelope. "Who are you?" "I'm representing the true beneficiary," the man sneered, turning on his heel. "You have 24 hours to hand over the keys and the account access codes. Check the papers. It's over." He practically ran to a beat-up sedan, parked at the curb, and peeled away. I stood there, trembling, the fever making the room spin. Marcus ripped the envelope open, his eyes scanning the top document. He went pale. "Sophie," he whispered, looking up at me with pure horror. It's a contest of the will. It claims Nana was mentally incompetent and that she signed a new will 3 days before she died. I snatched the paper from him, my hands shaking so hard I nearly ripped it. I read the name of the sole beneficiary at the bottom. The betrayal hit me harder than the grief, harder than the exhaustion. It felt like a physical blow to the gut that knocked the wind out of me. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a bank. The name on the paper was Brenda, my mother. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. I stumbled back, clutching the papers as if they were burning my skin. I collapsed onto the entryway bench, the cold wood seeping through my sweatpants, grounding me just enough to keep from passing out. "This is impossible," I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. She wasn't even there. She didn't visit Nana once in the last 6 months. Not once. Marcus was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. A new will, 3 days before she died? Sophie, Nana was in a coma for the last 2 days. She was barely conscious the week before that. She couldn't have signed anything. "I know that," I snapped, the anger finally cutting through the fog of my illness. I looked down at the document again. It looked official. It had seals, stamps, legal jargon that sounded intimidating. Incompetency, undue influence, immediate revocation of trust. "Let me see the signature," I said, flipping to the back page. There it was, a shaky, scrawled signature that looked vaguely like my grandmother's, but off, the loops were too wide. The slant was wrong. "That's not her signature," I said, my voice hardening. I watched her sign checks for 30 years. I watched her struggle to sign her name on the hospital admission forms. This looks like someone practiced it. "We need a lawyer," Marcus said, pulling out his phone. "We need to call Mr. Henderson right now. He wrote the original will. He knows she was sound of mind when she left everything to you." "Wait," I said, holding up a hand. "I need to hear her say it. I need to know if she actually thinks she can get away with this." I grabbed my phone, my fingers flying over the screen until I found the contact labeled simply Mother. I hit dial. She picked up on the second ring. There was no hello, no how are you, just a sharp intake of breath, and then her voice, dripping with faux sweetness that made my skin crawl. "Well, I assume the courier arrived," Brenda said. She sounded like she was smiling. I could hear the clink of ice in a glass in the background. I told him to be prompt. "What is this, Mom?" I asked, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. "You sent a stranger to my house to threaten me? You're trying to say Nana was incompetent." "Oh, Sophie, don't be dramatic," she sighed, as if I were a toddler throwing a tantrum over a toy. "It's just business. Nana wasn't herself at the end, we all know that. You took advantage of her confused state to cut me out. I'm simply correcting a mistake. A mother should never be disinherited by her own child. It's unnatural." "Unnatural?" I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "You abandoned her. You borrowed $50,000 from her 5 years ago and never paid a cent back. She didn't cut you out because she was confused, Brenda. She cut you out because she knew exactly who you are." "Watch your tone," she snapped, the mask slipping. "I am your mother. That house, that money, it's family money. It goes to the matriarch. You're just a child. You don't know how to handle that kind of wealth. You'll just waste it on whatever it is you do." "I took care of her," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I cleaned her, I fed her, I held her while she died. You were in Vegas." "And now I'm here," she said breezily. "And I have a very aggressive legal team, Sophie. The firm of Davis and Associates. They are sharks. If you fight this, they will drag you through court for years. You'll lose everything in legal fees. Or you can just sign the quitclaim deed I sent over, give me the access to the accounts, and I might let you keep the car." "You want me to just hand it over?" "It's the right thing to do," she said. "Don't make this ugly, Sophie. You know I always get what I want eventually." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," she said coldly. "You have 24 hours. After that, my lawyers start filing for eviction. Bye, sweetie." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my breathing ragged. Marcus was watching me, his face pale. What did she say? She thinks she's won, I said, looking back down at the documents in my lap. I ran my finger over the legal letterhead, Davis and Associates. The formatting was slightly misaligned. The font was Standard Times New Roman, but the spacing was uneven. My headache was still there, but the fog was lifting, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. My mother had made a severe miscalculation. She saw me as her daughter, the quiet girl who used to cry when she yelled, the pushover who just wanted everyone to get along. She had forgotten who I became when I left her house. She had forgotten my profession. I wasn't just a grieving granddaughter. I was a forensic accountant. I spent 50 hours a week analyzing finance, AL records, spotting forgeries, tracking hidden assets, and dismantling fraud schemes for high-profile litigation. I looked at the document again. It wasn't a legal threat. It was a sloppy collage of copy-pasted jargon. Marcus, I said, standing up, the dizziness was gone. Get me my laptop and the high-resolution scanner, and call Allison. Tell her to come over and bring a bottle of wine. What are you going to do? He asked, surprised by the shift in my demeanor. I looked at the fake seal on the paper and smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. She wants a legal battle? I'm going to give her a war. But she forgot one crucial thing: paper trails never lie. To understand why my mother, Brenda, felt entitled to burn my life down, you have to understand the dynamic she created. Brenda wasn't a mother in the traditional sense. She was a hurricane that occasionally touched down to wreak havoc before spinning off to the next disaster. She was beautiful in a manicured, high-maintenance way, always blonde, always tanned, always wearing designer clothes she couldn't actually afford. She viewed people as accessories or ATMs. My grandmother, Nana, was the opposite. She was steady, frugal, and kind. She had built a modest but significant fortune through decades of smart investing and running a small chain of bakeries. She had spent her life bailing Brenda out. She paid for Brenda's 3 divorces. She paid off Brenda's credit card debt twice. She bought Brenda cars that were inevitably crashed or stolen. But 5 years ago, the tap ran dry. Brenda had stolen a checkbook from Nana's house and written herself a check for $50,000 to fund a business opportunity that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. That was the line. Nana pressed charges, but dropped them only when Brenda agreed to go no contact. When Nana got sick, really sick, I was the one who stepped up. I moved in. I managed her medications. I managed her rental properties. I was the one who sat with Mr. Henderson, her attorney, while she meticulously updated her will. I don't want Brenda to have a penny, Mr. Henderson, Nana had said, her voice weak but her eyes fierce. She will drink it or gamble it away in a month. It goes to Sophie, all of it. Promise me. It's ironclad, ma'am, Mr. Henderson had promised. And now, here was Brenda. Later that evening, Allison arrived. Allison has been my best friend since college, and she has the kind of personality that can bulldoze through concrete. She's also a paralegal, which made her the perfect person to have in my corner. We sat at the dining room table, which was covered in the documents Brenda had sent. Okay, Allison said, holding up the court order to the light. First of all, this isn't a court order. This is a Word document with a watermark she probably downloaded from Google Images. Look at the seal. It says Official Seal of the State of Justice. That's not even a place. I noticed, I said, typing furiously on my laptop. And Davis and Associates? I ran a search. There is no law firm by that name in the state. There is, however, a Davis who is Facebook friends with my mother. His name is Todd Davis. He's a terrifyingly bad amateur magician and works part-time at a car wash. Marcus snorted from the kitchen where he was pouring tea. So her high-powered legal team is a magician. A bad magician, I corrected. I found his Yelp page. This is hilarious, Allison said, tossing the paper down. But it's also dangerous, Sophie. If she's willing to forge documents and impersonate lawyers, she's desperate. People do crazy things when they're desperate for money. She thinks she can scare me, I said, looking at a photo of Brenda on my social media feed. She had posted it an hour ago, a selfie with a glass of champagne, captioned, "New beginnings. Good karma coming my way, blessed heiress." "She's already spending the money," I muttered. "She probably took out loans against the inheritance she doesn't have yet." "That makes her volatile," Allison warned. "If you pop this bubble, she's going to crash hard. Are you ready for that?" I looked at the stack of boxes in the corner. Nana's things. The woman who had raised me when Brenda was too busy chasing her next boyfriend. Nana, who had worked until her hands were arthritic so that I could go to college. Brenda wanted to erase all of that. She wanted to take the home Nana built and turn it into cash for her vanity. I thought about the man in the cheap suit banging on my door. I thought about the fake seal. I thought about the smugness in Brenda's voice when she told me to watch my tone. "I'm not just going to pop the bubble," I said, closing my laptop with a snap. "I'm going to make sure she never tries to scam anyone again." "What's the plan?" Marcus asked, sitting down next to me. "First," I said, "we confirm exactly who this Todd Davis is. Then, we verify the notary stamp she used on the fake will B. 'Cause if that's fake too, that's a felony. And finally, I'm going to invite her over." Allison raised an eyebrow. "Invite her over? Why?" "Because," I said, a cold plan forming in my mind. "She wants the house. I'll let her think she's getting it. And when she comes to claim her prize, I want to see the look on her face when the real police arrive." "But she mentioned she has associates," Marcus noted, worry creeping into his voice. "Sophie, she knows where we live. She knows the alarm code. She grew up in this house." "That," I said, looking at the security panel on the wall, "is exactly what I'm counting on. We need to upgrade, tonight." "I don't like this," Marcus said quietly. "She's unhinged." "She's a criminal," I corrected, "and I'm going to prove it." The next morning, the house felt less like a home and more like a command center. The grief was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but I had packed it away into a mental box labeled "deal with later." Right now, I needed to be cold. I needed to be precise. I spent the first 3 hours of the day doing what I do best, following the digital trail. My mother's forged will was sloppy, but it was just sophisticated enough to fool a clerk if they weren't looking closely. The signature was a trace job. I overlaid it in Photoshop with a check Nana had signed in 2019, and they were identical down to the pixelated tremor. "She didn't just practice it," I muttered to myself, adjusting the contrast on my monitor. "She literally photocopied it and pasted it onto the document." I moved on to the notary stamp. State of Florida. Commission expires 2028. Name, Jennifer L. Miller. I pulled up the state's notary database. There was no Jennifer L. Miller with that commission number. The number belonged to a man named David who had died 2 years ago. "Strike two, Brenda," I whispered. Then I turned my attention to Todd Davis, the car wash magician. I found his personal Facebook profile. It was a goldmine of bad decisions. His most recent status update, posted 2 days ago, read, "About to come into some serious cash. Big legal gig. Finally getting my break. Lawyer life, fake it till you make it." He had literally hashtagged "fake it till you make it." I took screenshots of everything. Then I called Mr. Henderson. "Sophie," his voice was warm and grandfatherly, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around me. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine, Mr. Henderson, but we have a problem. My mother is circulating a fake will and has hired an actor to impersonate an attorney to serve me with fake eviction papers." There was a long silence on the other end. "She did what?" "I have the documents," I said, "and the proof they're forged. I'm emailing you the file now. I need to know what our options are." I heard the rapid clicking of his mouse as he opened the attachment. Then, a low whistle. "Sophie, this is forgery, fraud, impersonation of an officer of the court. This isn't just a civil dispute anymore. This is criminal." "I know," I said, "but if I go to the police now, she'll just play the victim. She'll say she didn't know, that she was scammed by this Todd guy. She's good at that. I need undeniable proof that she orchestrated it." "What are you planning?" Mr. Henderson asked warily. I need you to play along for 24 hours, I said. If she calls you, tell her you're reviewing the new evidence. Stall her, make her feel confident. Sophie, be careful, he warned. If she's this desperate, she's dangerous. I have Marcus with me, I assured him. We're handling it. I hung up and turned to Marcus, who was standing on a ladder in the hallway, drilling a hole into the ceiling. How's the view? I asked. Crystal clear, he said, checking his phone screen. I just installed the new 4K cloud cameras. We have one covering the driveway, one at the front door, one in the hallway, and one in the living room. They upload instantly to a remote server. Even if she rips the cameras down, the footage is saved. Good, I said, because I have a feeling she's not going to wait for the legal process to play out. I picked up my phone. It was time to bait the trap. I texted Brenda, Mom, I talked to a lawyer. The documents look concerning. I don't want to fight you in court. If Nana really signed this, I don't want to disrespect her wishes. Can we meet? I want to see the original document. The response came 3 minutes later. Finally coming to your senses, I knew you'd see reason. I'll come by tomorrow at noon. Have the house keys ready. She didn't ask to bring the document. She just demanded the keys. Noon the next day arrived with gray skies and a biting wind. I had set the stage carefully. The boxes were still out, making it look like I was packing. I had left the front door unlocked. Marcus was in the kitchen, out of sight, but watching the camera feed on his tablet. I sat in the living room, a single folder on the coffee table in front. Of me, inside wasn't a surrender of assets. It was the dossier I had compiled. The fake signature analysis, the notary fraud proof, and screenshots of Todd's lawyer life posts. At 12:05 p.m., a car screeched into the driveway. It wasn't the beat-up sedan from before. It was a rented Mercedes. Brenda stepped out, wearing oversized sunglasses and a fur coat that I recognized. It was Nana's. She had stolen it from the coat closet years ago. She didn't knock. She threw the door open and breezed in, bringing a gust of cold air and overpowering perfume with her. Todd, the fake lawyer, trailed behind her, looking significantly less confident than he had on the porch. He was carrying a briefcase that looked empty. Well, Brenda said, looking around the room with a sneer. It's about time. This place is a mess, Sophie. We're going to have to gut it before we sell. She didn't even look at me. She was already mentally redecorating. Hello, Mom, I said, remaining seated. Hello, Todd. Todd froze. It's Mr. Davis. Right, I said. Mr. Davis, the magician. Brenda whipped her head around. Excuse me. Sit down, Mom, I said, gesturing to the chair opposite me. We need to talk about the will. There's nothing to talk about, she snapped, though she sat down on the edge of the sofa. You said you were ready to hand over the keys. I said I wanted to see the original document, I corrected. Do you have it? Mr. Davis has it, she said, waving a hand at him. Todd clutched his briefcase. Actually, for security reasons, we kept the original in the vault. This is a certified copy. He pulled out the same photocopy from the other day. I didn't take it, I just looked at them. You know, Mom, I did some reading. Did you know that in the state of Florida, forging a will is a degree felony, and that impersonating a lawyer carries up to 5 years in prison? The room went dead silent. Brenda's face hardened. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you, I said calmly. I opened the folder on the table. I know Nana didn't sign this. I know Jennifer Miller is a dead man's notary number. And I know Todd here works at the Sparkle Shine Car Wash on 5th Street. Todd made a choking sound. Brenda stood up, her face turning a blotchy red. How dare you? I am your mother. I brought you into this world. And Nana took care of me when you couldn't be bothered, I said, my voice rising for the first time. She left this house to me because she knew you would destroy it, just like you destroy everything else. You little brat, Brenda shrieked. She lunged for the folder, swatting it off the table. Papers flew everywhere. You think you're so smart with your little computer job? You're nothing. This is MY house. My mother owed me this. She owed you nothing, I yelled back, standing up to meet her. She paid your debts for 20 years. She died heartbroken because her only daughter only called when she needed money. Shut up, Brenda screamed. She looked wild now, her eyes manic. She turned to Todd. Do something, tell her. Todd looked from me to Brenda, then backed toward the door. Look, lady, you said this would be easy. You said she was a pushover. I'm not going to jail for this. You coward, Brenda yelled at him. I paid you $500. And there it is, I said, crossing my arms. Admission of payment for services rendered. Brenda spun back to me, her chest heaving. You think this is over? You think because you found some Facebook posts you win? I have friends, Sophie, real friends, people who don't care about your little spreadsheets. Get out, I said, pointing to the door. Get out of my house. It's not your house, she screamed, grabbing a vase from the mantel, Nana's favorite blue ceramic vase, and smashing it on the floor. The sound was like a gunshot. It's mine, it should be mine. Marcus stepped out from the kitchen, his phone raised, recording. Leave, now, or I call the police. Brenda looked at Marcus, then at the shattered pottery, then at me. Her expression shifted from rage to a cold, reptilian sneer. Fine, she spat, keep the house, but don't think you're going to sleep soundly in it. She stormed out, shoving Todd out of her way. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. I sank back onto the sofa, trembling. Did we get it? Marcus lowered his phone. Every word, and the smashing of the vase. It's not enough, I whispered, looking at the shards of blue ceramic. She's not done. The next 48 hours were a game of psychological warfare. Brenda didn't disappear, she escalated. She started blowing up my phone with texts, first pleading, then threatening, then pleading again. Sophie, please, I'm in debt. I owe bad people money. They're going to hurt me. You ungrateful B***. I hope you rot in that house. Just give me $50K, that's all I need, then I'll disappear. I didn't respond. I forwarded every screenshot to Mr. Hend. Urson and the detective he had put us in touch with. Then the harassment started. Pizza deliveries I didn't order. Religious groups showing up at the door for interventions. Someone signed my email up for hundreds of spam lists. It was petty, but it was designed to wear me down. But the real investigation was bearing fruit. With the help of Mr. Henderson, we found out exactly why Brenda was so desperate. She hadn't just borrowed money. She had committed credit card fraud in 3 states. She had maxed out cards in her ex-husband's name. And most damningly, she had taken a loan from a loan shark using Nana's house as collateral, a house she didn't own. She promised them the deed, I realized, staring at the credit report Mr. Henderson had pulled. That's why she needs the house so badly. If she doesn't deliver, they're coming for her. She's cornered, Marcus said. A cornered animal bites. That night, the atmosphere in the house shifted from tense to terrifying. The wind had picked up, howling around the eaves. At 2:00 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the security app. Motion detected. Driveway. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I tapped the notification. The black and white feed showed a figure in a hoodie walking up the driveway. They weren't coming to the front door. They were heading around the side, toward the back porch, where the old wooden latticework was dry and brittle. Then I saw the canister in their hand. Marcus, I hissed, shaking him awake. She's here, and she has gas. Marcus was up in a second. He grabbed the bat he kept by the bed, but I grabbed his arm. No, don't go out there. She might not be alone. Call 911. I'm checking the back camera. I switched the feed to the backyard. The figure was there, fumbling with a lighter. The hood slipped slightly. It was Brenda. She looked disheveled, frantic. She was splashing liquid from a red jerry can onto the wooden steps of the porch. She's going to burn it down, I whispered, horror washing over me. If she can't have it, no one can. Police are on the way, Marcus said, his voice tight. They said 3 minutes. On the screen, the lighter sparked. A small flame danced in the dark. Brenda stared at it, her face illuminated in a ghostly orange glow. She looked Sad, for a split second, I saw my mother. Not the monster, but the broken woman who had never learned how to be whole. Then she dropped the lighter. The flames whooshed up the lattice instantly, catching the dry wood with a hungry roar. "Fire!" I screamed. "Get out, we have to get out." We grabbed our phones and ran. We didn't try to save the boxes. We didn't try to save the furniture. We just ran for the front door, the smell of smoke already curling under the floorboards. We burst out onto the front lawn just as the first siren wailed in the distance. The back of the house was already glowing, an orange halo rising into the night sky. And there, standing by her rental car in the street, watching the flames with a look of twisted satisfaction, was Brenda. She saw us, she didn't run, she just smiled. "I told you," she screamed over the crackle of the fire. "I told you it was mine." She raised her phone to take a picture of the burning house. "Smile, Sophie," she yelled. I didn't smile. I just held up my phone, the camera app open, recording her confession. "You're right, Mom," I said quietly, though she couldn't hear me over the sirens. "You did tell me." The flashing blue and red lights of the police cruisers flooded the street, washing over her triumphant grin, turning it into a grotesque mask. The chaos of that night is etched into my memory in a series of sensory fragments. The strobe light effect of the red and blue sirens bouncing off the wet pavement, the acrid, chemical smell of burning treated wood, the roar of the fire hoses as the truck finally pulled up, and the crew began their battle against the flames engulfing my back porch. But the clearest image, the one that I see when I close my eyes, is my mother. As two uniformed officers approached us, hands resting cautiously near their holsters, Brenda didn't shrink away. She didn't run. She pivoted, her face transforming instantly from a mask of twisted triumph into a portrait of maternal anguish. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar, terrifying in its speed and precision. "Officer, thank God," she shrieked, rushing toward them, her hands clasped in front of her chest. "My daughter, my poor daughter, she's having a breakdown. She set the house on fire. I tried to stop her, but she's off her medication." I stood there, frozen, soot streaked across my cheek, clutching Marcus's hand so hard I thought I might break his fingers. The sheer audacity of the lie punched the air out of my lungs. The lead officer, a tall man with a stern, lined face, held up a hand to stop her. "Ma'am, stay back. Who are you?" "I'm her mother," Brenda wailed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "She's been threatening suicide all week because of the inheritance. She said if she couldn't have the house, no one could. Please, you have to help her. She's dangerous." Marcus stepped forward, his body shielding mine. "That is a lie," he said, his voice shaking with adrenaline but loud enough to cut through her screaming. "She is lying. She broke in. She started the fire." "He's covering for her," Brenda screamed, tears now streaming down her face. Real tears. She was crying for herself, I realized. She was crying because the script wasn't going exactly to plan. They're in it together. They want the insurance money. The neighbors had gathered now. I saw Mrs. Higgins from next door in her bathrobe, clutching her cat. I saw the young couple from across the street filming with their phones. This was the audience Brenda wanted. She wanted witnesses to her martyrdom. The officer looked between us. It was a classic he said, she said scenario, and in the chaos of a fire, the hysterical mother usually garners the initial sympathy. He looked at me with suspicion. "Ma'am, is this your house?" "Yes," I croaked, my throat raw from the smoke. "It's my grandmother's house. I inherited it." "She stole it," Brenda interjected violently. "Officer," I said, forcing my voice to be steady, forcing the forensic accountant in me to take the wheel. "I don't need you to believe me. I need you to look at this." I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My hands were trembling, but I managed to open the security app. The footage from the backyard camera was already processed and saved to the cloud. I hit play. I held the screen up to the officer. In high definition, 4K clarity, the video played. It showed the empty porch. Then, Brenda walking into the frame. The timestamp was clearly visible, 02:14:33 a.m. It showed her face, illuminated by the porch light. It showed the red jerry can. It showed her splashing the accelerant. It showed the lighter. It showed the spark. The officer watched it in silence. He watched it twice. Brenda, realizing the attention had shifted, stopped wailing. She took a step closer, trying to see the screen. "What is that? What are you showing him? It's a deep fake. She's good with computers. She made it." The officer looked up from the phone. The suspicion was gone, replaced by the cold, hard look of law enforcement dealing with a perpetrator. "Ma'am," he said to Brenda, his voice dropping an octave. "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." "What?" Brenda gasped, stepping back. No, you're not listening. That video is fake." "You are under arrest for arson, trespassing, and filing a false police report," the officer recited, unclipping his handcuffs. "Don't touch me," Brenda shrieked, flailing as the second officer moved in to assist. "I am the owner of this property. You can't arrest me for burning my own house. It's my birthright." "Turn around, ma'am." The struggle was brief but humiliating. They spun her around and the cuffs clicked, a sharp, metallic sound that cut through the noise of the fire. As they marched her toward the cruiser, she locked eyes with me. There was no remorse, no "I'm sorry," just pure, unadulterated venom. "You'll pay for this, Sophie," she screamed as they shoved her into the back seat. "You ungrateful little brat, I'll sue you, I'll take everything." The door slammed shut, silencing her. I watched the cruiser lights reflect off the windows of the house she had tried to destroy. The firefighters had the blaze under control now. They had saved the main structure, though the back porch and kitchen were gone. Marcus wrapped his arms around me. "It's over, Sophie, we got her." But it wasn't over, not yet. The legal showdown came 3 months later. It was the public vindication I needed, not just for the law, but for my own sanity. Brenda had pleaded not guilty. She was sticking to the story that the video was doctored, that the will was real, and that I was the mastermind. Her court-appointed lawyer, because she had no money for a real one, looked exhausted before the hearing even began. The courtroom was half full. Mr. Henderson was there, sitting in the front row. Mrs. Higgins was there. And, surprisingly, Todd the magician Davis was there, sitting on the prosecution's side. Todd had flipped. Faced with 5 years for impersonating an officer of the court, he had taken a plea deal. He was ready to testify that Brenda had paid him $500 and a promise of a percentage of the estate to fake the documents and harass me. But the climax wasn't Todd's testimony. It was the evidence presentation. The prosecutor, a sharp woman who clearly despised crimes against the elderly and their estates, laid it out methodically. "Your Honor," she said, pacing before the judge, "the defense claims the defendant was the rightful heir. We have here the forensic analysis of the will provided by the defendant." She put a graphic up and the screen. It showed the pixel-perfect overlay of the signature Brenda had stolen. "We have the affidavit from the Secretary of State confirming the notary stamp belongs to a deceased man." She put up the credit report showing the loan shark debt Brenda was trying to cover. "And finally," the prosecutor said, "we have the defendant's own actions." She played the video, not just the arson video. She played the video from inside the house, the one where Brenda smashed the vase and screamed, "It should be mine." She played the video from the street, where Brenda smiled at the fire. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Brenda, sitting at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, finally looked small. The arrogance was gone. The fake tan had faded. Her roots were showing. She looked like what she was, a desperate, bitter woman who had gambled her family for money and lost. When the judge looked at her, his expression was one of profound disgust. "Mrs. Miller," the judge said, "in my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a case of such calculated malice against one's own child. You didn't just want the money. You wanted to destroy your daughter's life to get it." Brenda opened her mouth to speak, perhaps to launch one last lie, but her lawyer put a hand firmly on her arm and shook his head. "Shut up," the gesture said. "It's over." And for the first time in her life, Brenda remained silent. The sentencing hearing was brief. The judge had no patience for leniency. Brenda was sentenced to 8 years in state prison for arson, fraud, and forgery. There would be no parole for at least 5. The restraining order was made permanent. She was barred from contacting me, coming within 500 feet of me, or even mentioning my name on social media for the rest of her life. When the gavel banged down, I didn't feel the surge of joy I expected. I felt a heavy, deep exhale. It was the feeling of dropping a backpack I had been carrying for 30 years. I didn't stay to watch them lead her away. I didn't need to see her one last time. I had seen enough. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright, blinding sunshine. Marcus was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps. He didn't say anything, he just held out his hand. I took it, and we walked to the car. The rebuilding of Nana's house took 6 months. The fire had gutted the kitchen and the back porch, and the smoke damage had ruined most of the furniture in the living room. We lost the sofa. We lost the curtains. But when we started clearing out the debris in the dining room, I found something. Under a pile of wet, blackened drywall, there was a small, sturdy wooden box. It was Nana's recipe box. It was scorched on the outside, the wood char black, but the latch was still holding. I sat on the floor, amidst the ruin of the house, and pried it open. Inside, the index cards were pristine. Her recipe for apple pie, her notes on how to make the perfect roast chicken, and, tucked in the back, a photo of me and her when I was 5, baking cookies. I started to cry, not the hysterical, terrified tears of the night of the fire, but soft, healing tears. Brenda hadn't destroyed this. She couldn't touch this. We used the insurance money not just to restore the house, but to improve it. We opened up the kitchen, putting in the island Nana had always dreamed of, but never spent the money on. We replaced the back porch with a stone patio that couldn't burn. We moved in officially just before Christmas. The house smelled like fresh paint and pine needles, not smoke. The security system was still there, silent, watchful, but I found myself checking the app less and less. One evening, we were sitting in the new living room. The fire in the fireplace was warm and controlled, casting a gentle glow over the walls. "You know," Marcus said, looking up from his book. "Mr. Henderson called today. He said the final probate is closed. The accounts are transferred. It's all done." "It's really done," I repeated, tasting the words. "Did you hear about her?" he asked tentatively. "Brenda." "Yeah, Henderson said she's working in the prison laundry. Apparently, she tried to tell the other inmates she was a wealthy heiress who was framed, and, well, it didn't go over well. She's keeping to herself now." I looked at the fire. I thought about the woman who had demanded my inheritance with fake lawyers. The woman who had tried to burn me out of my home. The woman who had given birth to me but never been a mother. "I don't care," I said, and I realized it was the truth. "She's just a story now, Marcus. A bad chapter in a book that I've finished reading." I stood up and walked to the kitchen. On the counter, in a new frame, was the photo of me and Nana. "Come on," I said, pulling the recipe box out of the drawer. "Let's make apple pie." My mother had tried to burn my world down to get what she wanted. She thought fire was a weapon. She forgot that fire also clears the dead wood, making room for new things to grow. She had taken herself out of my life, and in doing so, she had given me the greatest inheritance of all: peace.